It's time now for Perspective. Today is the UN's International Day for Migrants, a day intended to shine a light on the contributions migrants make to the countries they settle in and the importance of ensuring safe and dignified migration routes. My guest today is Mattea Weihe, spokesperson for SeaWatch, a German NGO that works to save migrants making the perilous journey from North Africa to Europe across the Mediterranean. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us here on France 24. Could you please start by telling me about your mission at SeaWatch? What is it exactly that you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me and good morning. I'm really happy to be here. SeaWatch is a non-profit organization that is there to actually fill a gap that has been left there by states who kind of pulled out in the central Mediterranean and stopped rescue capacities there. So 5 years ago, we started our own operations and we said, okay, we're going to be here until states come back and do actually what is their job. 5 years later, we are still there. But our mission is, of course, to save as many lives as possible and to actually hold the ones responsible for the deaths in the Mediterranean that we basically witness every day.
And how many lives have you saved over the course of the last 5 years?
We have been involved in rescues with more than 38,000 people. Unfortunately, if you look at the central Mediterranean route, there is a lot of people who do not make it, so where the help comes too late. We've witnessed there 20,000 deaths in the Mediterranean, 13,000 on the route of the central Mediterranean. So this is for us actually the number that is much more devastating.
And what is it that's pushing these huge numbers of people to take that perilous journey across the Mediterranean? And are those reasons changing over time, according to what you've seen?
I mean, every person is different, right? So every person has their own reasons, their own history, their own background, families, comes from very different places. So I guess it's really hard to say that there's a specific reason for specific people. But however, what we've seen is that the situation in Libya, where a lot of people are fleeing from, is getting worse and worse every day. So we have seen since 2011, after the war, that it's gotten worse for migrants and refugees who are in the country. So they come and try to work, for example, or they try to get out of their countries, and then they're stuck in detention centers under very inhumane conditions where they get tortured, where they have to pay themselves out. So the people we meet on the boats, the people that we rescue, they tell us stories that I don't ever want to hear again. They tell us stories that are very, very, very hard to listen to. And they tell us so important stories that we actually need to listen to, even though they are very hard. And yeah, I guess also, of course, in the pandemic in 2020, we've seen that a lot of people are still continuing to flee out of Libya. And even though there is a global pandemic, it doesn't stop them to actually search a life in safety.
And has the pandemic presented any specific challenges for you as an NGO this past year?
Of course, I guess everybody was very challenged by this new situation. In the beginning of the year, so when the pandemic started, we were in the shipyard time. So we were about to sail with our new ship, the SeaWatch 4. But then, of course, we faced a lot of challenges in regards to that the shipyard is not working anymore, that we needed to have crew traveling to the ship, etc. So for that reason, it really, really slowed us down. So the work was basically done in half the speed. However, when we started our first mission under very, very strong COVID-19 preventions, we also realized that, of course, it makes our job very much more difficult. So we have crew that goes into quarantine 2 weeks prior and after the mission that gets tested, of course. And then while they're on board, they're working with all PPE, so personal protection equipment, to make sure that the virus doesn't spread in the crew and doesn't spread among the people that we have rescued. And we've been very, very, very successful with that. So we've seen that these preventions are important and that these measures need to be taken, and we will continue to do so as long as, of course, this pandemic exists.
Now, a few months ago, the European Commission announced a series of reforms to the bloc's migration policy. Ursula von der Leyen saying the new system would have common structures on asylum and return with a new strong solidarity mechanism. Are you hopeful that this plan will change things on the ground, or rather on the sea?
Unfortunately, I'm not hopeful at all. I'm actually very worried about this new development. I mean, what we see is that these words such as solidarity, etc., they are being used for something that is completely the opposite. I mean, even what we've seen in the last couple of months in Greece, in the Central Mediterranean route, has nothing to do with solidarity at all, but it's actually letting people drown, letting people live in camps that are way beyond any form of dignity or anything else. And for us, this pact is something that we need to really worry about in the future, and we are in no way supportive of.
So what are the policy changes that you want to see?
What we want to see is, first of all, of course, our main goal is to actually have safe and legal escape routes. So for us, it's very important that any person who wants to move wherever he or she wants to move gets the opportunity to do so and doesn't have to take a boat on the Central Mediterranean Sea. So we need to build up a society where we can actually make sure that people who want to move from A to B are able to do so in a legal and safe way. However, of course, as this is something that is currently not happening, we need to change the current situation, which would be for us that we need to have governments that step up their rescue capacities in the Central Mediterranean, that go out, that have rescue again on top of their agenda and actually disembark the people in European ports and not in ports that are not safe. And until that, people will continue to flee, people will continue to drown, and we hope that we will continue to be out there to do our best to prevent them from doing so.
And just one last question, I'm afraid we are running out of time. In your opinion, whose responsibility is it concretely to protect human rights, to protect human lives in the Mediterranean?
I mean, concretely, it is definitely the European Union. I mean, every member state is there and needs to be there to actually, to protect these human rights. However, what we've seen currently is that no such thing is happening. It is rather the opposite. So I guess every state has different responsibilities. Germany, for example, would need to take much more people from the islands of Greece, for example. Italy needs to step up its rescue capacities. Malta needs to start reacting on actually distress calls, because this is not happening anymore. And the overall responsibility, of course, lies with the European Union, but every state has their certain tasks that need to be fulfilled. And otherwise, we cannot talk about human rights in the Central Med anymore, because they do not exist.
Mattea Weihe, spokesperson for SeaWatch, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today.